I'm going to tell you something. You think you know about decisions, what to have for dinner, what to say to your kid. You don't know a damn thing. Not until your whole world gets squeezed down into 3 seconds, into a front sight post and a shadow. I'm 77 years old. I live in the same triple-decker in Worcester I grew up in, and I still don't know if I was right. Before all that, I was a kid, a dumb kid from Worcester who thought he knew something. I was at Worcester State, sort of. Me and my best friend Danny Murphy. We were going to figure it out. Then his draft notice came. Here's the thing. You don't let your brother go alone. So I dropped out. We went down to the recruiter together, signed up for the Marines, the Corps. My old man, a Navy man, nearly had a stroke. But we were going to watch each other's backs. We were going to come home heroes. That's what we thought. Boot camp was Paris Island. They break you down and build you back up as a Marine. Me and Danny, we got through it. We got our orders. 1st Battalion, 9th Marines. They called us the Walking Dead, a real cheerful nickname. We didn't know what it meant. Not yet. I remember the heat first. Stepping off the plane in Da Nang, 1969. It hit you like a wet blanket. Smelled like jet fuel, diesel, and something else. Something rotten and sweet. They loaded us onto a C-130, flew us up to Phu-Bai. Then the trucks. They called it the Freedom Bird. It was a cattle car. We bounced down those roads into First Corps, the northern sector. The jungle was a wall, green and dark and watching you. They gave us our gear, an M16, a flak jacket that felt like it weighed a ton. We met the guys we were replacing. Their eyes, they were empty, like someone had left the lights on but nobody was home. They didn't say much, just showed us the perimeter, the wire. That first night, listening to the jungle, it's not quiet, it's screaming. Bugs, animals, things moving. You don't sleep. You just wait. Me and Danny, we stuck together. We were assigned to the same squad. There was Rodriguez from Brooklyn, a wise guy who could make you laugh. Jenkins from Georgia, quiet, always writing letters. Our squad leader, Sergeant Harrigan, old man of 23. Hard but fair. You learn fast. You trust the man on your left and your right. Nothing else. Not the officers, not the news from home. Just the guy next to you. That's your whole world. We did patrols, ambushes. We humped those hills until your legs were rubber. The rain would come and turn everything to red mud. Your feet would rot in your boots. The leeches, the constant grinding fear. But you had your brothers. You had Danny. We'd talk about home, about getting a beer at Coney Island lunch back in Worcester. It kept you going. Then, 3rd week in country, we got our orders. We were moving into the A. Shaw Valley, a place called Operation Dewey Canyon. The grunts who'd been there just shook their heads. One of them handed Danny a can of peaches. "You'll need the sugar," he said. We loaded up, more ammo than usual. The mood was different, heavy. We boarded the helicopters, the Hueys. The noise was unbelievable. And as we lifted off, looking down at the firebase getting smaller, I knew something was waiting for us in that green. The A. Shaw, it wasn't a valley, it was a mouth. A green, wet mouth that swallowed men and machines and didn't spit anything back. We inserted by Huey, the LZ just a scar of red dirt hacked out of the jungle. The second your boots hit the ground, you were running. The noise, the rotor wash, you couldn't hear yourself think. We humped for days, straight into the mountains. The canopy was so thick it turned day into a green twilight. The rain never stopped. You were either sweating or shivering. Everything you carried, your rifle, your pack, your ammo, weighed double. The mud sucked at your boots. You'd take a step and it sounded like the whole world was kissing you goodbye. Our squad was down to 7. Me, Danny, Rodriguez, Jenkins, Sergeant Harrigan, and 2 new guys, replacements. One was a kid named Fisher, 18, looked about 12. The other was a quiet black guy from Chicago, Davis. He kept to himself, but he moved through the brush like a ghost. You could tell he knew his business. We were point squad for the platoon that day, a reconnaissance in force they called it, looking for signs of the NVA moving on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. We weren't looking for a fight, but in the A. Shaw, the fight was always looking for you. The tension, it was a wire pulled tight in your chest. You didn't talk, you used hand signals. Every shadow was a bunker, every vine was a tripwire. Your eyes never stopped moving. You'd hear a monkey scream, and your whole body would lock up. Danny was on my left, Rodriguez on my right. We moved in a staggered column, 10 meters apart, just like they taught us. Sergeant Harrigan held up a fist. We froze. He pointed to the ground. A footprint, not a boot. A Ho Chi Minh sandal, cut from a tire. Fresh. The mud was still oozing back into it. He held up 3 fingers, 3 of them, maybe more, close. We went to a crouch. The jungle got real quiet. No birds. That's the first thing you learn. When the birds stop, you're not alone. Harrigan motioned us into a defensive perimeter. We set up in a small clearing, maybe 20 meters across, thick with elephant grass and those skinny, tall trees. We were supposed to hold and wait for the rest of the platoon to catch up. We waited. The minutes stretched. The sweat dripped off your nose. You could hear your own heartbeat. Danny caught my eye. He didn't say anything, just gave me a look. The same look he gave me when we were kids, about to jump off the railroad trestle into the reservoir. A mix of, can you believe this? And here we go. I checked my M16, made sure the magazine was seated, made sure the selector was on semi. You do these things to keep your hands from shaking. Jenkins was scribbling in his little notebook. Rodriguez was just staring into the trees, his jaw working. Fisher, the new kid, his eyes were wide. He was breathing too fast. Davis was like a statue, perfectly still, listening. Then we heard it, a single sharp crack of a branch. Off to our front, not an animal, too deliberate. Sergeant Harrigan raised his hand again. Everyone brought their rifles up. We were facing out, backs to the center of the clearing, watching our sectors. The jungle was a wall of green. You'd see a leaf move. Was it the wind? There was no wind. My sector was the tree line directly ahead. Danny was on my left, covering the left flank. I could feel him there. That was the only thing that felt solid. The trust, the man next to you. That's when the first shot rang out. The shot came from my front, a single AK round. It hit the tree next to me, spraying bark. Then the whole jungle opened up. Automatic fire from 3 sides. Green tracers. The noise. It wasn't loud, it was everything. It filled the world. We were pinned. We hit the dirt, returning fire. I was shooting at muzzle flashes in the green. You don't aim, you point and pray. Sergeant Harrigan was yelling, "Stay down, return fire," but his voice was tiny under the roar. I saw Jenkins go down, just slumped over his rifle. No cry, nothing. Rodriguez was screaming, I'm hit in the leg." The new kid, Fisher, was frozen, curled up in a ball, his hands over his ears. Danny was next to me, firing short bursts. "Riley, 10 o'clock, bunker." I saw it, a dark slit in the earth under a fallen log. Muzzle flash from inside. We poured fire at it. It stopped, for a second. Then a grenade came sailing out of the tree line. It landed right between me and Danny. It just sat there in the mud, smoking. We had 3 seconds, maybe less. I didn't think. There was no thought. My body moved. I grabbed Danny by the back of his flak jacket and yanked him backward, throwing myself on top of him. The explosion was a hot fist. It punched the air out of me. My ears went to a high, ringing whine. Dirt and hot metal rained down. I got up. Danny was okay, shaking his head. I wasn't hit, but the blast, it moved us. It put us in a shallow depression a few feet from where we were. I looked up. The grenade. It hadn't been meant just for us. Fisher. The kid was still curled up, right where the grenade had landed. He must have tried to crawl toward us when he saw it. He wasn't moving. I took a step toward him. Danny grabbed my arm. "Tommy, don't. They've got that spot zeroed." Another burst of fire stitched the ground where Fisher lay. I looked at Danny. I looked at Fisher. I looked at the bunker firing at us. My job was my sector. My job was the man next to me. That was Danny. The kid. He wasn't in my sector. He wasn't my responsibility. That's what I told myself. That's what the Corps taught you. I made my decision. I turned my rifle back toward the bunker. I kept firing. I left him there. The firefight seemed to last hours. It was probably 3 minutes. The rest of the platoon finally pushed up and the NVA broke contact, just melted back into the jungle. The silence that came down was worse than the noise. We got to Fisher. He was gone. Took most of the blast. Davis, the quiet one from Chicago, he went over and covered the kid's face with a poncho. He did it gentle, like it mattered. Sergeant Harrigan did the head count. Jenkins, KIA. Fisher, KIA. Rodriguez, wounded. The rest of us walking. We policed up the gear. We loaded Jenkins and Fisher onto ponchos. We started the long hump back to the LZ. Nobody talked. Danny didn't look at me. I didn't look at him. That night, back at the fire base, Harrigan came to see me. He sat down next to my hole. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he just said, "You made a call, Riley. In 3 seconds. You protected your buddy. You maintained your field of fire. That's your job. You made the call a Marine is supposed to make. He meant it to help. It felt like a sentence. I nodded. I said, "Yes, Sergeant." But here's the thing. For 58 years, I've seen it. In my sleep. When I'm awake. That kid's face before we moved out. Those wide, scared eyes. And I see myself turning my rifle away. I had 3 seconds. I made a Marine's decision. I kept my buddy alive. But I left a kid to die on the ground. Was I right? Sergeant Harrigan said I was. The Corps said I was. My brain knows all the reasons. But my soul still doesn't know. And I'm 77 years old. Coming home it was another kind of war. They flew us into Logan. We were dirty, exhausted, just hollowed out kids. And there they were, the protesters, spitting, calling us baby killers. I remember this girl, couldn't have been more than 20, screaming in my face, her eyes full of hate. I just stood there. After the jungle, after Fisher, her words just bounced off. But the spit on my uniform, that stuck. That I felt. I went back to Worcester, to the triple-decker. My old man shook my hand, stiff. My mother cried. Nobody asked, and I didn't tell. You didn't talk about it. You just tried to forget. But you don't forget. The wounds, they don't bleed, so nobody sees them. I'd jump at a car backfiring. I'd wake up swinging, drenched in sweat, seeing that green tracer light. I got a job, lost it, got another. Couldn't stand being inside, couldn't stand the noise. I married Nancy. God, she tried. She was a good woman. But I brought the war home with me and I made her live in it. The anger, the silence for days, the drinking. I'd sit in the dark just drinking, seeing Fisher's face. I drove her away. I drove my boy Michael away. That's a guilt that sits right next to the other one. I wasn't there for them. I was still in that damn depression in the Oshawa Valley. I hit bottom in '79, lost another job. Nancy left, took the kids. I was in my kitchen, drunk, and I just looked at my hands. They were shaking, and I thought, this is how it ends. Not with a bullet, with a bottle. But I didn't. I called the VA, took every bit of courage I had left, started therapy. It was like digging shrapnel out with a rusty spoon. Slow, painful, but I started. Then in '95, I met Claire at a meeting. An AA meeting. She wasn't a vet, but she knew about pain. She knew about silence. She didn't push. She just sat with me. She saw the man under the rubble, and she started helping me clear it away. She's why I'm here talking to you. She taught me it was okay to not be okay. That love isn't about fixing, it's about showing up. The other thing that saved me? The brothers, other vets. Danny, the one I pulled on that grenade. We didn't talk for years. Too much between us. But he tracked me down in 2005. We had coffee. Didn't say much about it. Didn't have to. He just said, "You saved my life, Tommy." And I said, "You'd have done the same." And that was it. That was enough. We have a bond, us guys. Civilians don't always get it. It's not about the war. It's about knowing what the other one carries. You don't have to explain. So what do I want you to understand? A few things. First, when we came home, you failed us. You called us monsters. We were just kids you sent. Remember that. Second, thank you for your service. It's nice, I guess, but it's easy. What's hard is listening. See a vet who's struggling? Don't thank him. Ask him, "You want to get a coffee?" Just sit. You don't need to understand. Just be there. And to the young people, I see you. I see my grandson looking at the posters. Here's what I'll tell you. Serving your country is an honor. It is. But you go in with your eyes wide open. Know that it will change you, in here. Know that the hardest battles might come after you get home. And know this above all. The man next to you, the woman next to you, that's who you're really fighting for. Not the flag, not the politicians. The person in the mud next to you. You hold on to that. And when you come home, you talk. You get the help. You don't do what I did and let it fester for 20 years. I'm 77. I live in the same house I grew up in. I have Claire. I have my kids back in my life, my beautiful grandkids. I'm sober 28 years. I found a kind of peace. It's not the peace of forgetting. You never forget. It's the peace of carrying the weight, but not carrying it alone. Do I know if I was right that day? In my head, yeah. I followed my training. I protected my buddy. My brain knows that. But in my soul, the soul of that 19-year-old kid, I still see him. I still see Fisher. I think I always will. And maybe that's how it should be. Maybe carrying that question, that weight, is the price of being the one who got to walk away. It's the respect I owe him, so I carry it. For Jenkins, for Fisher, For Danny, who didn't make it out of that damn valley. I carry them all. And I live this life, the best I can, for them.